Okay, so hello everyone. This is our second lesson on poetry. We're going to look at a few different aspects of poetry today. We're going to study a poem, and then you're going to have a go, just like we did last lesson, in writing your own poem. So if you look at the three phrases there, they are three metaphorical phrases. So I want you just to think, and you can maybe write down in your book as well, what does each one mean in literal language? So the first metaphor is life is a roller coaster. There was a song which was written a long time ago by Ronan Keating called Life is a Roller Coaster. I don't know if you ever heard that. It's quite a good tune, actually. Second, my teacher is a dragon. So hopefully there's no teachers that you can think of that are like dragons, but that's sometimes what people might say. And third, time is money. So just have a think now and write down some ideas. What do we actually mean by those three metaphorical phrases? So in this lesson, you're going to analyse features of a poem, and you're going to be able to try and write in your own in the style of that poem. We're going to look at the difference between literal and non-literal language, and you're going to write your own poem inspired by the poetry of Adelaide Crapsey. So we're going to look at metaphorical phrases. We're going to look at whether the phrases are metaphorical or literal. We're going to analyse and then compose a poem. So what I want you to do now, and then you can pause it in a moment, okay, no cheating, is I want you to have a look at these 7 different phrases, and I want you to think about whether they are metaphorical phrases or are they what we mean literal phrases. So you're saying that something is something else. So saying, for example, the door is green would be a literal phrase. So I wandered lonely as a cloud. Sweat dripped from his tense face. As snug as a gun, the pen rests between my finger and my thumb. 4. I could show you wonderful things. 5. The panther paces over and over like a ritual dance around a centre. Number 6. Remembering my love, tears fall from my eyes. Number 7. My love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. So write down now whether you think they are metaphorical phrases or literal phrases. So hopefully these are the answers that you got. They are the correct answers. So when you're comparing something as being something else, then that's what we mean by a metaphor. So for example, I wandered lonely as a cloud. You're describing the wandering, okay, as being like that cloud, okay, that lonely cloud sort of on its own in the sky. And metaphors are a good device that's quite often used in poetry to help really convey meaning. And metaphors are really, really good because rather than just saying, for example, I wandered lonely, if you use that phrase as a cloud, then it just enables somebody to make that description a little more vivid and allows them to really imagine what you mean. So it's a really, really good way of conveying, putting across what somebody means, and that's great in poetry, obviously. So metaphors are great. They help you to imagine things. So if we have a look at a phrase like it's really silent. So if I said something like it's really silent in my house, which to be honest doesn't happen very often in my house. But if you said it's really silent, then the reader knows that it's silent, but that's all they get. Whereas if you say it's as silent as a graveyard, then the reader can start to understand what kind of silence it is. And then we get the feeling that the silence isn't particularly a good thing, but it's maybe something that's a little bit creepy, a little bit deathly, a little bit scary, for example. So that's what metaphors do. They compare two things. So we're going to have a little look at some poetry, and we're going to look at a poem which was written by a poet called Adelaide Crapsey, who lived from 1878 to 1914. And this image just gives you a bit of an idea about what this poem might be all about. So let's find out about this poem. So this is the poem. Listen, with faint, dry sound, like steps of passing ghosts, the leaves, frost crisped, break from the trees and fall. Lovely. So what I want you to do now is have a think about these 4 discussion questions at the bottom. First one, what time of year do you think this poem is set? Number 2, what do you think the weather is like in this poem? Number 3, what time of day is this poem set? And number 4, what would be a good title for this poem? So just pause the video now while you have a go at doing those questions. Okay, well done. So what time of year do you think the poem is set? Well, you could probably make an assumption that it's kind of autumn because of the trees falling from the leaves. So it might be sort of October, November time. Number 2, what do you think the weather is like in this poem? You get the impression it's quite cold because it says frost crisped. So that gives the impression that it's pretty cold. What time of day is the poem set? It could be the evening or the night time because it's very quiet. The association of ghosts, for example, it might be sort of like, approaching the sort of very end of the night as you got that frost kind of developing, which tends to develop sort of like late in the night into the early morning. And what would be a good title for this poem? Well, I will reveal that the title of the poem was actually November Night. So that's what the poem is called. The next thing I want you to think about is these think questions. These questions. You can write ideas in your book if you want. So the next question is, what is the sound of leaves falling being compared to? What do ghosts make you think about? Consider how they might look, how they might sound, and what they are. What does this have in common with the sound of leaves falling? And the poem is called November Night, so write the title in above the poem. Do you think that's a good title? Why or why not? So just have a go at those questions. You can pause the video now. Okay, well done. So if you have a look at question 1, what's the sound of leaves falling being compared to? Well, if you think about it, it talks about the steps of passing ghosts. Now, ghosts, they make you imagine that things are quite quiet. You can't always see them. It makes them sound a little bit creepy. So why does that have in common with the sound of leaves falling? Well, you could say that the leaves themselves might no longer be alive if they've fallen off the trees, from being sort of like green in the sort of, lots of beautiful colors. They change, don't they? The green leaves, they change color in the autumn, and then they drop off, and then they're sort of shriveled up and died. So the sort of leaves falling off the trees is kind of, the metaphor of ghosts of no longer being alive is quite a good one there. And whether you think that the poem is a good title, that's up to you to think about. So you're going to have a go at creating your own poem. There's a nice image there for the poem November Night. If you want to watch a video recording of the poem, then you can do. It's available on YouTube. You can click that link, or you can go and have a little search on YouTube if you want to. So you are now going to write your own poem inspired by November Night, but your poem is going to be called March Morning. So I want you to base your poem on what you've read from the November Night poem. Think about what a morning in March might be like. And to help you do that, I've got a few pictures on the next 2 slides just to help you out, to help you visualize what a March morning can be like. So if you think to the season March, sometimes there's an old saying about March that the weather's like March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb. So quite often you can get quite severe weather at the start of March. You can quite often get snow. You can certainly get frost. So here's a few images just to help you out about what a morning image might be like. So this shows you a frosty March morning. This is from a painting by Sir George Clausen called A Frosty March Morning, made in 1904. So you can see there the image of frost. You've got the trees there that haven't quite got their leaves on them yet. Sir Edward Stamp, he did a painting called March Morning. So again, that shows a little bit sort of sunnier within that picture. But again, you can see the trees haven't yet got their leaves on them. So you could make the trees a real focus of your description in your poem. And then here's another March morning, which shows it sort of like being quite cold, quite sort of foggy. Again, those trees there, and you've got obviously the water there as well. So that should give you some ideas for your poem. So you're now going to write your own poem inspired by November Night. Use those pictures to help you. I'm really looking forward to seeing what ideas that you are going to have. And when you've done your poem, you need to check it, and then this is a review of what we've done in the lesson today. We've looked at the difference between literal phrase and metaphors, and we've talked and looked at how metaphors are really effective in poems for enabling a reader to really imagine a scene. We've talked about November Night, and you're going to do your poem for a March morning. Okay, well done. Thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.